Good morning and welcome to the John DeVito Show. I hope everyone's having a great day. It is Wednesday. It's hump day. Thank God we're halfway there. Next week we have a short week, which is Thanksgiving. So I'm pretty pumped. So today I wanted to talk about something that's probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I'm 55 years old and I've been thinking about the differences between the way children were raised in the 1970s, 1980s, as compared to today. Now, I can't speak on the 50s and 60s because I just wasn't old enough, but I can talk about the 70s and 80s. I can talk about today and talk about the differences in the way we raise children and the differences in the way society is today as compared to back then. Now, today we're seeing a lot of mental illness. We are seeing a lot of violence. We're seeing a lot of shootings, mass shootings, things like that. We are seeing a huge spike in disrespect in society. And honestly, the younger generation of children are very entitled. And again, who's at fault for this? Is it the children or is it the parents that have raised the children? Right? So taking a step back into the 1970s and 1980s, I think about if I went into school and I got into trouble of some sort. I knew that if I got called down to the office, there would number one be consequences to my actions, and then when I got home, there would be real consequences. I knew that if I got in trouble at school, if I was disrespectful to a teacher, if I was disrespectful to an administrator or even another student, when I got home, I'd be hearing about it for my parents. And in some cases, again, not often as I got older, but back in the 70s and 80s, parents disciplined their children and sometimes, yes, they spanked their children. Now, today, it's become a very taboo thing. Parents are not allowed in any way to spank their children and really even to discipline their children because then you might be this horribly abusive parent or whatever society decides that you are. Now, if you think about the 1970s and 1980s, there may have been the occasional spanking. Now, when I'm talking about spankings, I'm not talking about beatings. I'm not talking about a parent literally abusing their children. That is never okay in any scenario, in any decade. Child abuse is not acceptable. However, I do believe that the discipline that was handed out in the 1970s, 1980s, and most likely before that was the primary reason as to why we had more respectful children, we had less violence in society, and we did not see many of the things that we are seeing today in society, such as a lot of widespread mental illness. I think that as parents today, we have given children too much latitude to do whatever they want. There are no consequences to anything that they do. I even see this in the schools. I mean, students today can get away with, now, for those that don't have young children in school, or for those that aren't aware as to what teachers have to deal with today. I mean, literally, students today can swear in class. A lot of the kids dress really inappropriately. If you go into a school, you'll see a lot of the younger girls that are dressing very provocatively. Young guys coming in wearing shorts in January, wearing beer shirts, wearing whatever else. And it is just a lack of respect for the institution. It's a lack of respect for adults. And the schools tolerate it today. I mean, you can literally go in and get in trouble in school and not even really get a detention, not get suspended. Back in my day, I mean, if you messed up in school, there was almost a positive chance you would get a detention. If you did something more severe, you would get a sizable suspension, whether it's out of school or in school suspension. Now, I don't even know if they have in school suspensions anymore, but man, those were a nightmare. If you got an out of school suspension, it was like a vacation from school. If you got an in school suspension, you just sit there for 7 hours a day, staring straight ahead, and it was just awful. But I wonder if, as parents, we've become too lenient. I wonder if, as parents, we have not demanded good behavior for my children. I mean, there are a lot of influences out there. There's YouTube, there's television, there's video games, there's all these different things that influence our children today. But back in the day, we were limited as to how much television you could watch. We were limited to younger kids not being able to see R-rated movies. And it just seems to me that children back in my day were allowed to be children a lot longer, and they were not exposed to many of the adult things in life. I mean, today you can't even watch network television without seeing some type of sexual interaction, with swearing, with whatever, even on network TV. And it's just horrible to see that today, when you look at children, they lose their innocence at a very young age. We have children that are having different mental illnesses that we haven't really seen previously. Now, I don't buy into the fact that, well, the mental illnesses were all there, they were just covered up. I don't think so. I remember being a kid in the 70s and 80s, and in my small little world where I grew up, there were not a lot of kids that had mental illnesses. Things were handled in school. And, my wife and I were talking about last night, even with bullying. Back in the day, if you had a bully, I remember I had a bully, okay? I had a bully that was really giving it to me. And I was coming home. I was very upset. And I remember talking to my parents finally, saying, this kid is bullying me. It's awful. I don't want to go to school. And I remember my parents just sitting me down and saying, hey, what you need to do is stand up to the bully. You need to get in his face and yell and scream at him like a madman. And chances are, if you do that, he will back down and you will not even have to fight. And I remember listening to my parents going, Jesus, really? I'm afraid to do that. I mean, I guess I could try it. So literally the next day on the bus, this kid started in on me. And I got up and I lost it on him. Didn't hit him, didn't push him, didn't touch him. But I let him know that if he continued, I was going to end it. That kid backed down and apologized to me and never bullied me again. Today in school, and I've seen this firsthand, the bullies are protected and the bullied are the victims. And how can I explain this? I mean, there are a couple different scenarios that I've seen. There is a scenario of a family friend of ours that we know that their child was being bullied mercilessly in school. And because this child was being bullied, the child went to the office. The child told adults that they were being bullied. So what the guidance counselors at the school determined was the best course of action was that the person that was being bullied should go into counseling. And the bullies were not even addressed. I mean, how is that right? Where the child that's being bullied is the one that's told, you need to go to counseling. But the bully is left to do whatever they want without any punishment. Another situation that I was aware of where I know that a fight broke out in school, and one of the children in school threw the first punches. And the person who received the first punches literally grabbed this person and threw him down to the ground and held him down until teachers came. I believe this person threw a punch in retaliation to the punches that were being thrown at him. Now, in this scenario, both kids were suspended. Whatever happened to standing up for yourself, standing your own ground? I think the whole zero tolerance thing has got it wrong, where the people that are being bullied can't stand up for themselves. Now, in my opinion, when you are a child that's bullied day in and day out, you can't see that in maybe 10 years things are going to be better. You can only see that the bullying is relentless, it's never going to stop, and you don't have a life. And I think a lot of times these are the kids that end up being mentally ill and end up retaliating in school against those who bully them. So I think as parents, and I'm part of this group, we've gotten it wrong. These days, our kids, we're spending thousands of dollars on travel sports. We're letting them play violent video games 24/7, whenever they want, till 3 o'clock in the morning. The parents have got to a point where we all think we're our kids' best friends, and we've neglected the fact that our children need parents. Our children need discipline. Our children need to be taught the difference between right and wrong. And when our children break the laws of society and break the rules of society and are showing disrespect to other people and showing disrespect to adults, there has to be consequences, whether that is being punished, whether that is being spanked. Our children all live in the timeout generation. And, we were told when we were raising our kids that, again, you can't spank a child. That's child abuse. So you give them timeouts. You sit them in a chair in the corner. If they're 6 years old, you sit them there for 6 minutes, and that'll teach them. I think that failed. We gave timeouts. And honestly, I don't think timeouts did a damn thing to benefit our children. So the whole point of this podcast is thinking about the differences between the spanking generation and the timeout generation. Now, what's the quote in the Bible? He who spares the rod spoils the child. I mean, that is literally written in the Bible. And I may have gotten the quote wrong. I don't know if that's exactly how it's said. But the bottom line is, we have a whole generation of parents that have spared the rod. Have we spoiled the child? I think we have. I mean, you see today a young workforce that are coming into working now. They want to work the hours they want to work. They don't want to do certain things. They don't want to wear respectable clothes into the workplace. So, but if you think about it, that's how these kids have been raised from day one. When the kids were young, if they wanted to wear shorts in the middle of January in Massachusetts, we let them wear them. If they want to wear sweatpants and slippers to school, we let them. If the girls want to wear Nike Pro shorts and sports bras to school, we let them. Back when I was in school, we dressed for school. We dressed in decent clothes. I wasn't allowed to wear shorts even to public school. So we dressed in nice clothes. We dressed respectable. We didn't dress half naked. We didn't talk back to our teachers. And again, what can you expect, though, from the children when you have parents that are destroying teachers on a daily basis for everything they do? Now, teachers aren't perfect. None of us are. But teachers have a very difficult job. And you have no idea the amount that parents are just steamrolling for their children every step of the way. And I don't think we've done our children any favors. I mean, part of becoming an adult is you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. You have to learn how to fight through the tough times yourself. Because let's face it, life is difficult. Life can be challenging. And you can't have mom and dad always steamrolling for you and advocating for you with teachers, with coaches, with everybody. So, I don't know. I think about how our parents raised us. I mean, when I was a kid, I got spankings. I didn't like them. But I'll tell you one thing. There was a little bit of fear instilled in me. And that fear kept me from being very disrespectful to adults. It kept me from being disrespectful to my teachers. It kept me from being a respectful person. And I knew that if I broke the rules, there were going to be consequences at home and consequences at school. I don't think the children of today realize that consequences are even a thing. I mean, some children do, but the majority of children feel like the red carpet is being rolled out for them all the time, and they can say or do whatever they want. And that is not a way for children to act, because these children are going to become adults. They're going to become entitled adults that feel they can do and say whatever they want without having any consequences for their behavior. And I really believe that parents allowing children to act, dress, and talk the way they want without fear of consequence is a reason for the spike in mental illness that we have among young people in this country, because children who are entitled and popular are destroying the kids that aren't. And there's no ramifications whatsoever for those children that are bullying, and the bullied have no place to turn. And today you add in the social media aspect of all of this. You can post pictures of kids on social media. You can say things about them that are lies, that are just evil and mean, and everybody sees it. So at least going back in time, when a student or a child had a difficult day at school and they were being bullied, they would come home, and home would be a sanctuary. Now, the home is no longer a sanctuary because social media comes into your house. And you may not be getting bullied at home, but you may be getting bullied through social media while you're at home. So I'll tell you, there's so many things that we have to talk about when it comes to the way children are being raised today. And I'm not saying go out and get a paddle and spank your child. That's the answer. But I'm just saying, back in the 1970s and 1980s, when I was a kid, children were more respectful. I did not see the levels of mental illness that you see today. And children were expected to behave and act a certain way. Those expectations have gone out the window. And I do believe with that, that is one of the main reasons why we are seeing children struggling so much today. Discipline is not the enemy. Discipline is a good thing. Children need discipline. Adults need discipline. And when we are very passive about enforcing any type of consequences with our children today, I believe that is a main reason for a lot of the problems that we have in society today. So when you think about the 1970s and 1980s, I call it the spanking generation. And you think about today, the woke generation, the timeout generation, whatever you want to call it. When was society better off? Society was a better place in the 1970s and 1980s than it is today. And I know for some of you that did not live in that time frame, it's hard to understand. But you got to trust me. I lived through that time, and the world was truly a better place. It wasn't perfect. There were still a lot of negatives, but the world was a better, more respectful place than it is today. And I do believe that a lot of it came down to the way parents disciplined their children back in the 70s and 80s as opposed to today. So when I think about it, my feeling is the spanking generation or the timeout generation, in my opinion, we were better off under the spanking generation. So hopefully people come to their senses and realize that discipline and consequences are not a bad thing. They are integral and important in raising healthy children. All right, so thank you everybody for tuning in. Going to keep this podcast short. I'm about 17 minutes right now. I hope you all have a great day. I love all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And if you like my show, please tell a friend. Thank you for tuning in to the John DeVito Show.